Hey everyone, how you going? Remember the amazing rosemary infused cold processed soap batch I made on this channel about a year ago? In that video, I harvested fresh rosemary from my garden, I infused the oils with the plant material, and I made a gorgeous bluey green soap out of it. Do you remember that wild red to blue-green colour morph? That was pretty amazing. Well, in this video, I'm revisiting that very same batch of soap. And here's the confession, today I'm fixing it. In the original video, I focused on the method for infusing the oils with fresh rosemary, and I'm embarrassed to say that somehow I must have mismeasured something along the way, and the soap turned out to be lye heavy, meaning that it either had not enough oil or it had too much sodium hydroxide, so it had a higher pH than it was meant to. So how do I know the pH is too high? Well, I tested it. You can use pH test strips. You just follow the color chart given with your strips, and if it's over 9, then it's probably too high. You can also do the zap test by wetting the soap, rubbing your finger in the wet soap, and then putting that to your tongue and tasting it. If it's got a weird zappy feeling on your tongue, it's probably got excess lye. I've got videos with more detail on both of these methods, and I'll link those below. Once you've identified that your soap is lye heavy, the fix is actually quite simple. Before I started though, I gave this soap a little rinse off because it was a bit dusty from sitting on the shelf for so long. If you do this, just leave the soap somewhere to dry off completely before you move on to the next step, otherwise it'll be tricky to handle. Next, you want to grate the soap into small pieces. It doesn't need to be super fine. In fact, even small slices or really small chunks, just cut up with a knife, that should probably do the job. I do like to grate my soap though. It only takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and this was quite a big batch. Once your soap is grated or finely cut, put it into a large saucepan or crock pot and add some water. I had over 2 kilograms, almost 5 pounds of grated soap. So I added well over a cup of water, probably closer to 2 cups through this entire process. Now here's the trick. Because this soap is lye heavy, it has too much sodium hydroxide in the mix, so we need to add more oil to help consume that lye and turn this into a well-balanced, usable batch of soap. I honestly have no idea how much excess lye this soap had, so initially I added just a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil to the pot and let that all cook through together, and then I tested it to see if it needed more. This soap didn't have any coconut oil in the original recipe, so this will give it the extra fat that it needs and it will boost the lather too. Once I've got the soap, the water and the extra oil into the pot, I put on the lid for a while and I turned the heat up to medium. You don't want to scorch and burn the soap on the bottom of the pot, but you do want to generate enough heat so that the water will steam up through the grated soap and help it to melt. One big lesson I learned while filming this was that this is not easy to do in large batches. It was so hard to stir, it was slow to heat through properly and process, and it was just generally hard to handle. Next time I would halve or even quarter this batch and do it in a much smaller pot, just bit by bit. That would be a lot easier. I did use my stick blender to help the process along. This is optional, but it can help if you are having trouble mixing your batch if it's really large. Don't be tempted to add too much water though, because the end soap product will be too soft. It should be really thick and gloopy with just enough water added to make it possible to stir it. And you will need a really rigid silicone or stainless steel spoon to stir this soap. It's going to take a bit of work. Now you just continue to gently heat, mix and cook the soap, testing it along the way and adding more oil until the pH comes down. You have to ensure that the soap is thoroughly cooked in between each new addition of oil. If you don't cook it properly, the oil won't saponify with the excess lye and you won't be able to tell if you've actually added enough oil or not. And you could add too much if you don't do it bit by bit. So with a big batch like this, it is a long process. I eventually turned off the heat and left this for the next day because I had other things I had to do, but I managed to finish it the next day. I was actually shocked by how much extra coconut oil this took to bring the pH down, and it's always a guessing game when you don't know what mistake you made in the first place. But if you try and be patient and process it bit by bit, you'll eventually get to a point where the pH comes down to an acceptable level. Once I was satisfied that my soap was fully cooked and saponified with the added coconut oil and the pH strips told me it was less caustic, I finished the soap and I put it back into some molds before cutting it. Before moulding it though, I stirred in some French green clay mixed with water and some green mica to give it a nice light green colour. And once it had cooled down a bit more, I added some rosemary and palmarosa essential oil and stirred that through before I spooned it into the moulds. Interestingly, this soap still had a beautiful fresh rosemary fragrance that I could smell as I grated it and as I was cooking it. You probably couldn't smell it in the finished soap though, but while it was warm and quite hot, you could smell it. The extra essential oil is optional, but I just did want to boost the fragrance a little bit more. Depending on how much water you add to your soap, it could be very sticky, so using a paper liner in your molds will make it a lot easier to remove later. It's also really important to bang the molds down as you spoon the soap in to prevent air pockets. I did this fairly well except for the top layer. You can see when I cut it that I got air pockets closer to the top, which was a bit annoying, but you know, I was pretty tired by the end of it, so that happens. Once you've unmolded and cut your soap, it will most likely need quite a long time to dry and harden. I added a fair bit of water to this rebatch to make it easier to stir, so it did make the soap quite soft, which will mean it will need a good couple of months to get nice and hard and dry again. I tested this soap about a week after the rebatch. The lather is lovely and all is right again with my rosemary soap. I cannot wait to finally use it now, and it smells really good. Well, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it helps you to work through this issue if it happens to you. Leave a comment below if you've got any questions or you want to share anything with me. I always love to read your comments. Check the description box too if you want any more information about my soap making. See you next time. Thanks for watching.